In some cases, Piranesi took parts of the features that appear in Noli's plan. For example, his version of the Porta del Popolo gate is different from Noli's. Piranesi centers the opening and regularizes the stretch of the Aurelian wall. But he does take something away from Noli's walls. Piranesi depicts the angle of the Muro Torto, which you see here highlighted in blue on the Noli plan, and you see here in red on Piranesi's plan, part of the city wall to be less than 90 degrees, something Noli discovered in conducting his surveying campaign of the city. Piranesi also drew from ancient objects. Another experience he had with Noli exposed him to a key piece of evidence he used in formulating his plan. During the spring of 1742, while he waited for his great map to go to print, Noli accepted the task of recomposing the fragments of the Severan Forma Orbis on the Capitoline Hill. Piranesi assisted Noli with his task to reconstitute hundreds of fragments and install them in the Capitoline Museum. The fragments of this enormous marble map of Rome, carved in the 3rd century CE, were displayed in the Temple of Peace in the Forum of Vespasian. Recovered in the second half of the 16th century, the remains of this 60-foot by 45-foot map captivated antiquarians and artists. This marble plan provided a view, albeit a partial and fragmentary one since large sections of it remained lost, of the ancient city. But perhaps more importantly for Piranesi, it showed a glimpse of how ancient Romans visually recorded their city. The Severan plan precisely depicted buildings, courtyards, and even staircases. The scale of these structures and the gigantic scale of the map itself must have appeared wondrous to the 22-year-old Piranesi. The overpowering size of the buildings of ancient Rome, indelibly recorded in marble, revealed that even the majestic and towering ancient remains that dotted the modern city were mere shadows. Piranesi included 9 of the fragments of the Forma Orbis in plate 16 of the Campus Martius. In this image, he fits 2 fragments together, assembling 2 pieces of the puzzle that was the marble plan. One of the surviving bits is etched with the letters L-I-A. You can just make that out up here. Piranesi matched this piece with another fragment that you see here on the left that depicts a colonnade with 2 large open structures adjacent to it. In his text, Piranesi decoded the L-I-A inscription, reporting that the sections show the Septa Julia, quote, the vast edifice, as he describes it, ruins of which can be found in the basement of the Palazzo Doria Pamphili and under the church of Santa Maria in Via Lata, he says. The Septa, which served in antiquity as the voting precinct in the Campus Martius, was rebuilt in marble by Julius Caesar and included a massive 1-mile-long portico. Piranesi identified these structures based on his reading of Frontinus. Comparison between Piranesi's map, which you see here on the right, and his image of the Forma Orbis fragments, which you see here on the left, demonstrates that he did not copy precisely from the marble remnants. On the iconographia, the portico of the Septa Julia and the Curatores are pushed apart, so there is space for the Via Lata. And you can see just the I-A Via Lata running along here, and you can see that there is no such space for that feature provided here in this fragment. The street is not recorded on the marble fragment, and in fact, there's no space to fit in that feature. On his map, Piranesi regularizes the irregular spaces that appear just below the porticus to the right in his image of the fragment. And you can see here how he's regularized these spaces here, and if you compare them with the spaces here on this etched image of the Forma Orbis fragment, you'll see that Piranesi has sort of cleaned them up, regularized them, and organized them in how he's presented them on the map. Just as with Noli's plan, Piranesi manipulated the evidence he gathered from the blasted fragments of the Forma Orbis. The lines incised on the marble bits are retraced with his burin in his image that represents the 9 pieces. But in making the iconographia, Piranesi does not quote literally from the fragments he so carefully engraved. Instead, he transposes some features and reworks others. The text that preceded the plan of the Campus Martius quickly reveals that ancient literature had a guiding role to play in Piranesi's reconstruction. The essay is a parallel text that appears in Italian and Latin and is divided into 6 chapters. It begins with the location and extent of the campus and then moves chronologically through the history of its monuments from the Etruscan king Tarquin to the, quote, as Piranesi refers to it, decadence of the empire. Piranesi's essay is spangled with a new scholarly tool, footnotes. And you can see some of them here on the left-hand side of the page, which is always where the Latin text appears, and some of them here at the bottom of the right-hand side page, which is the Italian text. Footnotes, as modern scholars understand and use them today, were introduced around 1700. The Campus Martius volume includes more than 1,000 literary references. Sometimes, in fact, the footnotes take over almost the entire page of text. Although he often claimed that his own abilities to transform and describe the ruins of Rome was based on close examination of crumbling monuments, Piranesi privileged close readings of ancient texts in formulating the Campus Martius plan. He relies on a range of authors who include Pliny, Cicero, Tacitus, and Livy. Suetonius, who in his 12 Caesars vividly describes the funerals of Julius Caesar, Augustus, and Nero, each of which was held in the Campus Martius, is also cited. These great ceremonies were followed by the interment of the imperial ashes in the family tombs, also in the campus. These texts convinced Piranesi that in the imperial period, one of the key functions of the Campus Martius was as the burial ground of the Roman emperors. Strabo's geography, which dates to the reign of Augustus and describes the city to a Greek audience, has a particularly important role in Piranesi's essay. Strabo appears for the first time on page 1 of Piranesi's text and makes regular appearances throughout the rest of the work. Piranesi's chapter on the Campus Martius during Augustus's reign quotes the Greek geographer extensively. Piranesi's study of Strabo's text dates to at least the 1750s. His debt to Strabo is recorded in the first image of the first volume of the 1756 Antiquitate Romani, the Pianta di Rome. The topographical index to this plan, so it's key, records several spots on the Colli degli Ortuli, or what is today known as the Pincian Hill. The index relates that this hill was the site of the, quote, Grand Bustum, or Ustrinum, built by Augustus. And Piranesi shows that in his plan right here. So here's the Muro Turto on top of the Pincian Hill. Here's the mausoleum of Augustus, and here's the Bustum, or the crematorium, or the Ustrinum here. Piranesi reports that the identification of the site comes from Strabo, who, according to Piranesi, describes the Bustum, or the crematorium, as located at, quote, the intermediate place between one plane and the other, between one part of the campus and the other. Piranesi returns to the Greek geographer at the beginning of the Campus Martius essay. Strabo reports that the size of the Campus Martius is remarkable. So this is Piranesi quoting Strabo. That it was the location of the tombs of Rome's illustrious men and women, and that the most noteworthy of these was the mausoleum of Augustus, a monument that was accompanied by a crematorium, enclosed by a wall, and by a sacred precinct with remarkable promenades. Strabo's description of Augustus's mausoleum as part of a complex that included a bustum or crematorium situated within a great park with wide avenues surrounded by a wall served as a guiding principle in creating the plan. Piranesi's reliance on Strabo's descriptions of the Campus Martius to recreate the lost city is not limited to the iconographia. The plate that describes the topography of the city and traces the paths of the aqueducts as recorded by Frontinus is accompanied by two texts. This text that's labeled explanation of the plan of the aqueducts and the observation on the limits of the Campus Martius as presented in this plate. The text of the observation clarifies one of the strange qualities of the Campus Martius plan, the extent of the campus itself. Piranesi reviews the opinions of modern writers on the size of the campus, concluding that most believe that the Aurelian Wall served as the outer boundary of the campus to the north. Piranesi's campus, as it is depicted in the plates of both the Antiquitate Romani and in the Campus Martius volume, extends far beyond the wall. So this is the wall right here. Piranesi's plan, of course, stretches northward toward the Milvian Bridge. Piranesi writes, quote, "I found my opinion on the basis of irreproachable monuments and, principally, on the geography of Rome described by Strabo in Book 5, who, in his acknowledgement of the size of the campus, defines it with greater distinction than any other author," end quote. Piranesi returns over and over again to the text of geography to justify the size and the extent of the campus. According to Strabo, quote, "the rest of the city is only an appendage." But understanding how Piranesi understood Strabo does much more to illuminate the map than to tell us how Piranesi determined the size of the campus martius and why he granted such importance to Augustus's tomb and the bustum, or crematorium. It is worthwhile to consider exactly how Piranesi quoted from Strabo. Strabo's words appear within quotation marks or are italicized in Piranesi's text, a common signal in the 18th century that an author was directly reproducing text from another source. Because the essay in the Campus Martius Antiquae Urbis book is composed of parallel Latin and Italian texts, Strabo appeared in both languages. In Piranesi's Latin text, the quotations from Strabo appear in Latin in the body of the essay, with the original Greek recorded in the footnotes at the bottom of the page. In the facing Italian pages, Strabo is quoted in Italian in both the body and the footnotes. There were a number of versions of Strabo's geography that would have been available for Piranesi to consult in creating the campus essay. Guardino Verona prepared Latin and Italian translations of Strabo. The Latin text appeared in Rome in 1469 and was reissued many times. It remained the only available Latin translation until Isaac Casaubon's Strabonus Rerum was published in Paris in 1620. Guarino's Italian translation, his Prima Parte della Geografia di Straboni, was first published in Venice in 1562. The passages from Strabo that appear in Piranesi's Latin and Italian texts do not come from any of these translations. Even more curious is the fact that quotes from the same passage in Strabo appear in different versions in Piranesi's text. For example, near the beginning of the essay, Strabo's description of Augustus's tomb from Book 5 of the Geography is reproduced, and you see that here on the right-hand side. So Piranesi starts this passage describing, lifting from, or quoting from Strabo, saying that this is un tumulo situato in riva al fiume sopra un'estremità sublime di marmo bianco, and then he goes on from there. Later, on page 37, which you see on the right-hand side of the screen, Piranesi quotes from the same passage from Strabo when he describes Augustus's tomb. And this begins, so it's the same passage from Strabo, un tumulo situato, so all of this is starting off the same way as it did back on page 7, and then quickly changes. Sopra un'alta sostruzione di pietra bianca. So same idea, but different words. Different words are being used to represent the same part of Strabo's text. The number 5 on page 37 keys to a footnote that directs readers to Book 5 of the Geography. Here, the same passage from the same text appears using yet another translation. Piranesi may have returned to the original Greek each time he chose to dip into Strabo. But this seems unlikely, as Piranesi returns to the same passages from Strabo again and again. Retranslating Strabo's Greek each time would have been an unwieldy compositional strategy. The Latin passages from Strabo that Piranesi reproduces do not come from either of the standard translations available in the 18th century. Although faulty memory certainly was responsible for garblings of short quotations in Piranesi's day, just as it is today, this does not provide a logical explanation for the appearance of different words in different places being used to quote from the same lines in the Geography. After writing out the passage once to use in composing the text, it would seem unwieldy to not just reuse that same set of words again when quoting from the same lines in the Geography. It seems more likely that these quotations were being recalled from memory. This practice itself is part of a venerable tradition stretching back to antiquity. Piranesi's reading and remembering of an ancient physical environment fits neatly with how ancient Romans themselves experienced their city.